Hello, salam, shalom, namaste, satrikal, aloha, hola, ciao, bonjour, buna, and privyet. Really, really good to be back with you, and you'll be so happy that you have joined us today because we have a very, very special guest returning for a second interview because we had such an
Yay.
time with Sanae last time. So welcome back, Sanae.
Thank you, Samir. So nice to be back. Thank you for having me back.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you back. I really did have such a fabulous time with you last time. And we have just so much more to talk about. Because for those of you, if you missed the last episode we did with Sanae, please go check it out. She shared some brilliant insights and tips on how you can make marketing more fun and easy because Sanya is a business breakthrough coach and also a sales mentor. Now, today, another really cool thing that Sanya has done is she is an author. She has written a really amazing, awesome book. And I would love for you to tell us more about that today, Sanya.
Sure, thank you. Well, I think this may resonate with quite a lot of people, this part of my journey, and the reason the book came about. So the book is called Paid in Full, and it's Free Yourself from the Burden of Debt and Live Your Best Life Now. So essentially it is my story and also a kind of step-by-step guide to how to free yourself from the burden of debt. So this is why I say it may resonate with a lot of people. So just a very quick kind of backstory. Obviously, as you know from the last conversation we had, I've been in sales for 25 years now. So when I started my business almost 8 years ago, I knew how to sell. I felt confident about selling. And so when I set up my business to help other coaching entrepreneurs to discover how to confidently and authentically sell and get rid of all the ick and the sleaze, that was great. And I was having a great time and I was helping these amazing coaches to sell their coaching and make money and all of this kind of thing. But there was this thing in the background that I knew, well, I didn't quite realize at the time, but this thing in the background was really diminishing how I was showing up and how I was playing out in my business, as in it made me play small in my business. I didn't realize quite how much at the time. But what I'm talking about is debt. So I am an absolute expert in debt. And I say this because from the moment I turned 18, right up until this part of my journey, the paid in full bit, 23 years, I was in debt. And from right from age 18, the first opportunity that I got to sign up and get a credit card, I don't know why, but I just did. And then I got a couple of student loans out, which back then when I was at university, you didn't need to because we were funded and also we got government grants. So I didn't need to borrow any money. But I took out the student loan. It was only 1,000 that I was able to get. And that kind of started this, not freewheeling as such, but that first inkling of being in debt. I didn't know how I was going to pay it off. I just assumed that post uni I'd get a job and it would magically be paid off. So fast forward 23 years, every single year, I think every single new year, I had the New Year's resolution that this year I was going to pay off my debt. So by virtue of it being every year, you can tell that every year I didn't succeed. And so when I started my business, there were moments where I really got to the point where I had paid, got close to the end, but then something would happen or a course would appear or I'd want to invest in myself and my business, and I built the debt back up. So whilst I was in my business, I was investing in all sorts of courses, coaches, programs, thinking that was going to be the thing that was going to help me pay off my debt. And looking for the secret magic bullet that everyone kind of promises. And I invested tens of thousands, and it never was. And so it was like this burden in the background, this deep, dark secret. Nobody knew. Nobody knew in my family, not my partner at the time. Nobody knew. It was like my dirty secret, this debt. And I reached a point in early 2018 where I maxed out on my biggest credit card limit, which was 18,000. I had lots of pockets of other credit cards, all maxed out. I had my overdraft, £3,500, and I had a loan, a family loan. But when I went to pay something for, it was less than £100 on my credit card, my biggest last bit of limit of 18,000, it declined that final payment. And in that moment, I realized I'm maxed out. I have no limit left. And I'll never forget that moment, because it was then I literally just, something switched inside of me, and I broke. I fell to my knees. I felt the blood drain out of my face. And I just, this is my breaking point. I didn't even know how much debt I had. I thought it was around £35,000, which I think in US dollars, maybe about 43, I don't know, 40,000. And at that moment, I just thought, something has got to give. I'm on my knees here. And a few days later, I decided that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to clear this debt. And it came because, so that was kind of the first moment. The second thing that happened in that sort of enough is enough was I was on having a conversation with another coaching friend of mine. And I was still shaken from that hitting my limit. And she could sense something was wrong. We had been friends for a while. She knew something was wrong, and she asked me, and I told her about my debt. And I said, I think it's about 35,000. I've never told a soul. I'm carrying it all on my own. And she said something so kind of strange, maybe, but she just said, well, you're very strong. And I said, very strong? Why? What makes you say that? What do you mean? She said, well, a lot of people commit suicide over less. And that, for me, something just switched in my brain. And after the call, I did some research on suicide and debt, and I realized this is real. This is, reaching a point where, oh my goodness. So it was in that moment that I made a decision that enough is enough. I needed to empower myself, and I decided I'm going to pay this debt off in the next 6 months. That was what I decided. And if I succeed, I had no clue how, bearing in mind I've been trying to pay it off for 23 years. If I succeeded, then I would write a book about it and share that with other people. And so that was a really pivotal moment for me, just making that decision. And then the journey started. And I ended up realizing I was 50,000. So that's how much denial I was in. I was actually £50,000 in debt. And I took myself on a journey, really deep healing journey. And in less than 7 months, all of the debt was gone. And that whole journey was so life-changing in so many ways. And I learned so much about energy and spirituality. It was a spiritual journey. I never imagined it, but it turned out to be one of the most spiritual journeys of my life that was transformational on every level. And so from there, I wrote about my journey, I tracked myself, and then I published the book. So this is paid in full. And yeah, so that then became like such a huge kind of, well, just life-changing for me. So yeah, and then as a result of publishing the book, so many people then came forward. I was just astounded at the level of resonance that my story had when it came out. And people then said, one person messaged me and said, I'm waiting for the workbook. I was like, oh. So that got me thinking, and then I created a course tracking the exact steps I took, And I got about 23 people. Like, I just put it out there. I didn't know what to expect, and I got 23 people in this kind of beta course, if you like. And then when that 8 weeks finished, people started saying, "What next?" Because we're on a roll. People were actually clearing their credit cards in those 8 weeks. And then after that, somebody said, or a few people said, can we continue somehow? Because we need that accountability. We're on a roll. We're just getting started. And so that's when I created a membership, and just a low ticket, just monthly membership for anyone who wants to just have that support through the course. We meet every week. I coach them every week around their money stuff and the debt stuff, and people have had phenomenal results. So it's been one of those things where I think 23 years of pain, and that it's almost like that's another essence of the purpose that I have, if that makes sense.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode. Hope you're getting value out of it. For your information, this episode has been sponsored by the Happiness 101 program. Are you a change maker, coach, trainer, or healer? Are chains of fear holding you back from making the impact and income you desire? Using a unique combination of positive psychology and the spiritual wisdom of our most effective change makers, the Happiness 101 program helps you break through your limiting beliefs and manifest the abundance and success you desire with fun and ease. Interested? Book a free Happiness 101 exploration call with me, your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Just use my online calendar link in the show notes. Now, back to the show. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And for sure, I mean, you know, based on the response, the amazing response that you've been getting to this work that you're doing, that you're not alone in this. And like I can relate to so much of what you're saying. My journey was a little bit different with debt in the sense that I had zero debt in my life until I started my own business, because I come from an Indian Pakistani family, and it's very interesting in our culture. If you're a middle class family, which I mean, there's parts of my family that have more money, but by and large, my immediate family, we were living a middle class lifestyle, and living by those values. And for a middle class Indian, middle class Pakistani person, debt is a terrible thing to take on. It's like we recognize what a huge trap it can be. And so like I know that my parents struggled with that at various points in their life. And I grew up listening to my mom tell horror stories of how terrible, trouble you can get into if you get into that. And not only my family, by the way, but there were stories all around me growing up of, like literally like you said, people even dying because of issues related to that. And so I, never thought I would fall into that kind of a problem. But when I started my business and I needed, like my parents helped me, my family helped me to the extent that they could with financing different aspects of my venture. But there came a time when I was like, I can't take any more from my family. I need to figure things out for myself. And the thing that got me, I think, was like you said, that promise that gets made there, that, all these programs and trainings and coaches who are like, work with us, we will help you make money. And so it's like, I'm making an investment. I'm making an investment in myself and my business and my future. This is not just money or taking on debt to, just blow it off and on some like
Mm.
trivial personal thing or whatever. I'm going to make this investment and then it's going to pay itself back. And
Yeah.
it just didn't work like that. And not that the services that I signed up for, programs I signed up for, I truly believe there were fine programs that were teaching
Yeah,
me,
absolutely.
but it's like I think the thing that I didn't realize was that the results that they were promising, especially in the context of the timelines that they were promising, like, oh, within the next 3 months, you'll have this amazing result, or within the next this so many weeks, you will have that amazing result. And it's like, okay, I wasn't able to generate those kinds of results in that kind of a time.
Mm.
And in the meantime, there's this debt and it's like growing and oh man. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's such a common story, isn't it? And it is a trap, and it inadvertently it's a trap. And I think what you were saying about your upbringing and the whole story, the narrative around debt, and that's, I think that's the common narrative, that it's bad and don't get involved. And so I think that, well, that perpetuates the problem,
Mm,
because what I discovered through doing the work on myself was, and bearing in mind that over those years, it wasn't like it wasn't through lack of trying that I wasn't getting out of debt. So I often compared myself to, I feel like a yo-yo dieter. So you
uh,
see these people who lose all this weight, and they're really happy and they look great and they feel amazing and proud of themselves. You see them 2 years down the line and it's all come back on, and it's just this yo-yoing.
yeah.
So I had tried every debt diet on the market, or repayment strategies, budgeting apps, all these different methods to manage your money. And for whatever reason, none of those external strategies worked. So it wasn't until I hit that rock bottom for me, was when I then decided none of these external strategies work. I need to turn the lights inward, the spotlights on me, and go within. That was the only place left for me. And
Yeah.
so when you talk about kind of the narrative about debt in your family and in society in general, what I've discovered was that perpetuates the problem, because we load debt with this meaning that it is like, it will get you into trouble, which kind of, when you believe something, you will perpetuate it. But also the main resonance of the debt is shame.
Mm,
So if you get debt out, if you take a credit card out, or you set up an overdraft, or you take out a loan to start growing your business, what you're not realizing is you're taking on this frequency, you're triggering a dormant kind of belief system that is loaded with shame. So even at a slight undetectable frequency, you're then emitting shame. So as that shame is kind of becoming a part of your energy field, it becomes very hard to clear the debt, because you're in this conflict, this inner push-pull relationship, because the shame is going out, it's attracting more to be ashamed about, more debt. So that was what I recognized, like, massively. And when I work with the people in the Paid in Full and Prospering Academy, or I talk to anyone who has debt, the biggest, like, and because I knew it, for me, it was my dirty secret, it's loaded with shame.
yeah.
And so when you can clear that meaning, then that puts you in a position back in control, back in power.
That is a very excellent point that you just raised. And it actually makes me think about this concept I was learning about from one of my coaches, where he talked about good debt and bad debt. And also his framing was also in the context of, like you were saying, it's like, what's the story that you're telling? So
Mm,
like the good debt and the bad debt, both in terms of, he said, one, so there's two levels at which you have to think about the issue. So one issue, it's about, well, what are you taking the debt out, spend, or invest or not invest in? Like, is
mm,
the debt that you're taking out just for expenses, or like that are going to add to that, or is the debt that you're taking out like for an investment,
yeah,
some kind of yeah, in some kind of a investment that you expect, or and have a plan to help you generate more funds, more money, and so
mm,
forth. There's that aspect, but then, like you said, there's also backstory of what does debt mean.
get me.
And so you have to look at good debt and bad debt from both of those perspectives.
Yeah, because in and of itself, debt is not bad.
Mm.
It provides opportunity. It enables you to make those investments now so you can grow your business. So in terms of it's neither good nor bad. But because we've been raised with these beliefs,
Yeah.
then the minute we apply for it, that's then created this like resonance, this frequency, this energy that creates more negativity.
Yeah, and in addition to, I think, the negative backstory that, like, for example, I grew up with, there was also a lack of education around just the practicalities of
Mm,
when it makes sense to take out debt. So, for example, one of the things we that I was learning from this particular coach, you're talking about, okay, you have to, first of all, know your numbers. Like, you can't, like you said, you didn't even know how much debt you were in.
yeah,
So he
too
was like,
in denial. Yeah.
exactly, it's like, you have to know your numbers. You have to know how much debt you are in, if you are in any debt, but you also have to know your income. You have to know your expenses. You have to, and then he's like, you need to, only when you know all of those numbers can you come to any kind of proper conclusion about, okay, this much debt I can afford to invest or take on, because based on my income and this and that, this is what I could pay off, etc., etc. But like, if you don't even know the numbers, you can't even begin to create any kind of realistic plan or solution. So, and I
Yeah, but
know,
yeah, I, yeah, I agree, and I think when as I said, I didn't even know how much debt I was in because I was in that state of shame and so much fear around it that I just assumed, I couldn't even go there because I just thought if I know exactly how much debt I'm in, it would be too painful, too overwhelming. So part of the process that I take people through and is in the book is I've called it acknowledging what is. And acknowledging what is on multiple levels. So the first thing you need to do is, as you've just said, acknowledge your numbers. You've got to just be completely frank and honest and get exactly how much debt you owe, who you owe it to, what are the interest rates, what's the terms and conditions, so when you do that, and when I remember in the book saying, I know it, I'm telling you like, yeah, just create a spreadsheet and write all your debt down. It's not going to be easy. And you may do that in a state of absolute, crying your eyes out and feeling terrible and all this shame coming up. So that's the first thing of acknowledging what is actually knowing your numbers. The second part of acknowledging what is actually sitting in the emotion. Because when you sit in the emotion, that's when it starts to dissipate, because we spend so much time avoiding those horrible feelings. I didn't look at my bank account. Why would I want to look at my bank account? Because it feels painful. So I'm just going to push it away and I'm not going to acknowledge it. and so you're constantly like, it's like a pressure cooker. You're pushing down those painful feelings because nobody wants to feel that. But when you actually take the lid off, and I mean, the first time when I started noting all my numbers and I saw 35 was actually 37, out the next one, oh my God, it's 4, 40. Oh my God, it's actually 45. Oh my God, it's actually, and as the numbers were mounting, my body was shaking, literally shaking. I could feel the tears. Just everything was like alarm bells. My whole nervous system was on high alert. And so as I sat there and I just allowed myself to be in the pain of it, and it took a few sessions of just sitting in it, but slowly and surely the emotions were able to have a release because I was in just allowing myself. So that's the second part, acknowledging the emotion of shame or fear or whatever, guilt, doesn't matter, just allow it to come. Then the third part of acknowledging what is once it's like, I always picture it like layers. Once the emotional layer has been released and dissipated, what then is allowed to come up are all the stories that you hold on to, the narratives, the meaning that you've given the debt. So once all that shame I'd allowed to come up, then I heard, you're out of control, you're a loser, you don't deserve, you're out of control. All these stories that were beneath, holding the emotion in place, that were like a broken record, but I hadn't properly taken the time to listen to. So, and it was just such a freeing experience to actually allow myself to sit in that. It's not pretty and it's not fun, but it feels so good once you've allowed yourself to just be honest. That's what it is. It's being honest with yourself.
Right. And the thing is that it may not be fun in the moment, but if you truly just allow yourself to feel your emotions, they will dissipate way more quickly than you can even imagine, first of all.
Yeah.
And then when they have dissipated, then it opens up space to create some fun in your life.
Yeah, because you think about how much energy it takes to just maintain status quo when your nervous system is on hypervigilant. It takes so much energy. So when you can release some of that energy that's holding everything down, because God forbid, if you feel it, it'll hurt. Once you release it, like you say, creative energy, you've got more vitality, and more access to your own resourcefulness, because when you're stressed, you have no access to your intuition, your inspired resourcefulness, all of that good stuff. So,
right. And when you're dealing with such difficult just issues, difficult things that have been difficult for you, to be able to introduce an element of laughter into the process. It can be so healing just to be able to get yourself to a place where you can look at what you experienced and just find some humor in it, and not be able to and be able to, just sort of realize, okay, like, I turned it into this big, dark thing and this huge burden, but actually from this other perspective that I can now take because I've released the shame and the guilt and all these other negative emotions, I can just, like, like acknowledge what is, but then, it's like realize that, oh, part of the recognition of what is that, like, whoa, like, there's just this, like, it's that you realize, okay, I'm not in this alone. There's so many other people who have dealt with it and dealt with it in a way that, is allowed them to actually resolve the problem and do it. And, with grace, and do it with strength and becoming stronger, and all of that, so just every every realization that you have of this sort, it just sort of like for me, it just sort of, oh, it's not such a big, deep, dark thing anyway, and not such a burden after all. And so the more you go through that, then you actually begin to also imagine, and then eventually you're able to see and feel and experience that actually can also be easy, that it is easy to,
It
like,
is, it,
yeah.
yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, it is easy once you can clear that like you say, the negative emotion. And even so, when I made that decision, I'm going to pay this off in 6 months, even after 23 years of setting New Year's resolutions and never doing it. And I set this goal 6 months. And if I do it in 6 months, I'm going to write about it. I have to write about it because I need to tell people how I did it. So in that moment, I had no clue how I was going to do it. But I didn't actually, honestly, Samia, I didn't do anything different externally. But the debt started to diminish and I felt happier, just happy, more peaceful, more content. And all of that charge had gone, all of that pain had gone. And so the debt was diminishing all by itself without, obviously not all by itself, if you know what I mean, but it wasn't that I'd suddenly gone out and I was budgeting fiercely, or I'd finally got my head around a new strategy. I just carried on doing what I was doing, but with more conscious awareness.
Yeah.
And the debt was getting paid off easily, smoothly. I was having more fun. And when I was having more fun, I was getting more clients, more money was coming in. And when it got to the 6 month mark, because I was working with a coach at the time, at the 6 month mark, I still hadn't paid off all of it. I still had a good chunk left, but I felt so bloody happy. And I said to my coach, what now? What now? Because I know the debt's not paid off, but I don't care anymore. I just don't care anymore. And she was like, and I said, what's next? And she went, write the damn book. And I was like, okay. And it was when I started writing the book, then the very next month, I had my biggest ever month, and that it just cleared the rest of the debt. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, within just under 7 months, £50,000 in debt gone. And now I've written the book. And this is the thing that's important to add. And people talk about the law of attraction, and I could have made that decision to pay off the debt 6 months previously, and somebody could have walked into my life a week later through law of attraction, serendipity, coincidence, whatever, and handed me a check for £50,000 to clear your debt. And I could have taken that check and said, woohoo, look what I've attracted, cleared my debt. But you can guarantee that within 3 months, 6 months, I'd be straight back in debt
Yes.
because I hadn't done the inner work. And this is why it's so important to understand your money story, your money paradigms. When you can heal those, the external world becomes a reflection
Yeah.
of your new state of consciousness. So my new state of consciousness around debt was completely neutral. I didn't care anymore. I was joyful anyway. And that's when everything shifted. And that, again, that became a life changer in all areas of my life. I just realized that I can apply this to anything and everything.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And you know what you just said about being joyful anyway? That is such a deeply spiritual place to be in. I think people don't realize, when
Yeah,
we talk about spirituality and we talk about uh, like people don't understand the power of joy. People don't understand, it's when you are in that joyful energy, things are fun, things are easy. Uh, And that joyful state is such a deep spiritual state because like for me, the way that I learned to understand that was, as a Muslim, we are taught that God has 99 names, which describe different aspects, different characteristics of God, different, like the nature of God. And and so when, you think about, okay, well, what is our source of peace? What is our source of joy? As a Muslim, I've been taught that God is our source of peace. God is our source of joy. And so the more joyful I feel, the more peaceful I feel, the more happy I feel, actually that is me being more deeply connected with God. So the more like I'm connecting more deeply to source. And that's the cool thing, isn't it? Also that I think a lot of people don't realize is that being happy, being joyful, it's not like you are or you aren't. There is so much depth to like the experience that your capacity, our capacity to experience joy, peace, happiness, it's actually infinite. And to no matter how happy you are already are, there's room to grow. No matter how joyful
Yeah,
you really are, there's room to grow. And the more you grow in this context, actually, the more deeply you're connecting to source, to the source
yeah,
of peace and joy, right? And that is the
yeah. It's a state of being. I think it's a state of being. And when you can bring that, like, I think peace, love, and joy are not emotions. They are states of being. And they're, like you say, they're deep states of being that are our natural inherent state. So for me, I always think the growth journey, and this is a bit of a cliche, isn't it? The growth journey is not about learning, it's about unlearning. So
Mm,
as we're peeling back constantly the layers of the onion of limiting belief and erroneous fear and negative emotions and stories and meanings that we've given things that are just perspectives and filters, and we take those filters off and take the blinkers off, we're constantly just getting more and more into that deep state. And one of the biggest kind of outcomes at the end of the book, I'd kind of put that full stop on it, I was like, oh my God, this is it. The profound level of joy that I felt as a result of going on that healing journey, um, I realized that I was postponing joy,
yeah.
constantly postponing joy. And that was the biggest thing. And that's still the biggest thing I see every almost daily. People, entrepreneurs, postpone joy because they think, when I achieve this, then I'll be happy. And it's when I achieve this amount of money or get these clients or whatever. And it's like, no, no, when you feel joy now, then you'll attract the money, the clients, the prosperity, the wealth, whatever it is you want that is a match to that joy for you. It will come in. And it's about just freeing yourself of judgment of this current situation you're in. Stop judging your situation and just accept it and be joyful anyway. That's not easy. I'm not saying that's easy, but it's doable. And I think it's well, actually, I'll say it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy.
And I will just say that it's not easy only as long as you have that story that it's not easy.
Yeah, yeah, it's the judgment,
Like, yeah, that's
mental
the
judgment.
that we tell ourselves, that, um, just like you realized by going through your journey about, this healing or the issue of debt, and you came to the point of realizing that, oh, actually, releasing debt that you have, solving it can be fun and can get to the point
Yeah,
where that's fun and easy. And not getting into debt in the first place is also possible. And you can do that by staying in a place of being joyful and so forth, because then you're, it's about maintaining that high frequency, that high vibration, high energy that allows you to continue to attract abundance and keep it in your life. So you're
Yeah.
not losing it. In the same way, I realized that, actually the idea that we have that there are circumstances where things are not going to be easy, that's actually in itself a limiting belief that we
Yeah.
created. It's a story that we told ourselves. And actually, this is one of the biggest insights that I've been learning from my spiritual mentor that I'm working with now. And my spiritual mentor, he's like, Samia, our goal as people who are on this journey, our spiritual journey, and committed to our spiritual growth, really our goal is to cultivate this. Our goal is to cultivate joy and gratitude every moment. And
Mm.
that's the state we want to live in every moment. And you might not be there yet, um, but it is possible. It is possible
100%.
to do. And so you have to actually believe that. Because like we were talking about this earlier, like if you don't even believe something is possible, it's for sure never going to be true for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the other thing I just would add, and this again came as a realization through this part of the journey, is that when we are in a situation that we perceive as bad and we label it bad,
Mm.
we're not seeing the bigger picture, because it's almost like there are no bad things, because
Mm.
we can choose that if a situation is perceived as bad, like I held on to my debt for 23 years because I perceived that whole situation as being really bad. Now I'm on the other side of it and I'm helping other people get out of debt, and I have all this joy and fulfillment from doing that. I realized that, thank you, debt, for being with me and creating that understanding, that almost expertise of how to get into debt really badly, in order for me to have to hit rock bottom so I could get out of it and then turn around and teach others. And so the situation now with hindsight wasn't bad.
Right.
It felt bad at the time because I'd labeled it so. And so I think often the universe has to step in and give you situations that you need to grow and overcome so that you become the next level you. So bigger picture, it's never bad, because with hindsight, you're thankful for that situation.
Yes. And another thing, oh my gosh. So here's another thing. Like for sure, I actually came to that kind of realization with regards to the big trauma that I had experienced growing up in my life, that trauma of child sexual abuse survivor. And I got to a point where I realized, just like you did, oh, I learned so much from that. I learned so much from that. I'm a better, stronger person now because I ran through that. So that was like one level of realization about why what happened to me wasn't bad, quote in quotes. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's the other realization that I had. This took a little while longer, but the
Okay.
realization that I had, that like again, this idea of, even when I was going through the struggle part of my journey, the universe was constantly trying to help me, help myself, heal myself, but I wasn't ready for whatever reason to receive that learning, to receive that
Mm,
feedback, to accept that learning and accept that feedback. Like you said, was postponing joy. I didn't think of it like that, was, but that is in fact what I was doing. So I could have actually reached the point of healing, joy, peace, potentially way sooner.
yeah.
But I also had to get to a certain breaking point where I was like,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
can't take this anymore. So sometimes, that's just how we are. you know, that we need to get to that breaking point. But I just, since we're talking about, you know, how, oh my gosh, like it doesn't have to be that way. Like you don't have to get to the breaking point before you can get to the other side where, you know, you start growing and healing and so forth.
Mm.
It is possible, because that's another limiting belief that we can sort of fall into and be like, you have to get to the breaking point before you get, no, you don't have to anything.
Yeah, it's a
It's like,
choice.
it is a choice, you know. And it's just, again, like you not being in a place where you're ready and willing to make that choice or feel able to make that choice. Like you may not be in a place where that seems possible to you. And that's totally fine if that's where you are at. Just
Mm.
going in your journey. And
Yeah,
but
I think it's in the suffering that it's almost like quote unquote easier to kind of to go to the level of suffering before you decide and you flip and you because your brain has this cognitive dissonance that is so extreme that you just think I can't take it anymore. Up to that point, often you're not even aware of the level of what's happening because you're in a comfort zone, or maybe it's complacency or just unawareness. So sometimes it's just you're trundling along without realizing that something does need to change, you know. And so I think sometimes and I think as well we are so, like, when I think about me and the debt and what happened leading, or what was going on for all those years up until the moment I just decided, and I cleared it in 6 months, for crying out loud. Why couldn't I have done that so many years earlier? It was because I was so familiar with that background static that I just almost learned to live with it as it was so familiar and safe. And that, I think that is probably the reason why it becomes a part of our nervous system's natural survival, and therefore we don't even know, we're not even aware of it until breaking point.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I think, you know, the last thing that I will say, and then we'll wrap up, you know, it's just my takeaway message, like those of you who are listening to us right now, the one thing that I want you to be able to take away from this is, number one, you know, that it can be fun and easy to heal yourself from this problem of death and what leads to it. It can be fun and easy. And
Yeah.
for me, also just know that wherever you're in your journey with that, it's totally fine. No around that. And if you wanted to speed up the process and you want to make it more fun and easy now, without needing to get to some, you know, breaking point, that's also possible. Just know that. Just think about, just have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and it's about, you can decide now to completely take your power back. Take your power back. That, I mean, that really for me was the first thing I did. I am damn well taking my power back. And, you know, and that was almost like the decision was step one. Decision, this is going to happen. I'm totally taking my power back. I'm not relinquishing power to debt anymore. And it was like turn the tables. And me, that was an immediate shift. So that, you know, I just want to add that, yes, you can have it be fun and easy and end the suffering, end the suffering. Yes. Stop postponing joy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I think I'd have to make a banner or something. Stop postponing joy.
Yes.
That is
Huge,
so
huge.
wonderful.
It's everything really.
Indeed.
Mm.
Okay, thank you again
I,
so.
oh, we ran out of time. I'm loving this conversation, Samia.
Yeah, and
Thank
I
you.
could honestly just keep going, but we do need to sort of wrap up for the day.
Thank you.
And I just want to remind you, our listener, that you should check, please check the show notes and click on the links in the show notes. We're adding Sanae's links in the show notes. I'm going to also have my links in the show notes. So if you need to get in touch, get some help, get some support, please do that. And until we connect next time, I just wish you lots and lots of peace and joy.